Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Simsol webinar. In this webinar, we are going to be sharing with you tips and tricks on how to effectively create and speed up the estimating process. It's no secret that the best adjusters know how to utilize their estimating software to quickly and effectively create estimates. Because in Simsol, there's no codes to remember or look up, you can create these in minutes. All right, we're going to go through the agenda now. First, we're going to talk about how to set up contacts. Then we're going to go into setting up your preferences. This is kind of like a template. Then we're going into creating and using macros, creating areas, cloning areas, using the grouping functionality, and then also how to use the global function and how it speeds up estimating. All right, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Danny. He is our Director of Training, and he has over 25 years experience actually being an adjuster, so he understands. And so without further ado, I'm going to now introduce Danny.
Hi,
Danny.
everybody. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for all joining in on this webinar. And I hope that that this will be beneficial for you. I know that using these copy, clone, group, and global functions will definitely speed up your claims handling process. So what I just shared my screen. And so what we're going to be doing here is the first thing that we want to do is set up our computer so that we can actually take advantage of putting in all this mundane information for all your claims. And the way we do that, the first thing we need to do is let's talk about contacts. Now, what is a contact? A contact is any entity other than the insured. So that means you are a contact, the carrier is a contact, the IA firm is a contact, as well as the contractor and possibly attorney or engineers. So I'm going to show you a quick way of how to do that. And the command that we want to use is called maintain from the main menu, contacts. So I'm just going to slide my mouse over here and left click on it. This brings up my contact window. So as you can see, I have some already existing contacts in there. So what I'm going to do is create a new contact. And with that, I just come up and select the option of new. As I do that, then it brings up my contact information window. From that, I'm going to select either adjuster and let's say, for example, if we want to use the adjustment company, just these two contacts, then what I'll do is I'll put it in. I'll fill the screen out. And remember, you want to hit the tab key, and that really helps out a lot because it then accepts the entry and then goes to the next entry. And then I can come up here and just call this Simsol adjusting. And you can then come up and put the mailing address in and the city and the state. And this is, no news hat on that one. And then, for example, here I'm going to put the zip code in. Okay, as you can see, I'm advancing, but I'm using the tab key to advance through the fields. You also might want to put in, for example, your work number. So I'm going to put in and I'm always following it up with the tab key on my keyboard. Now, what's really important, and please pay attention to this, is just because you've got the contact in here, there's another thing that we need to address, and that is your state license number, or if you're doing flood claims, your flood control number. We can click on the other button, and that's what provides this here. Okay, and this will be your state license number right here. And it'll ask me for the state that you want to put in. So I put FL in. So basically, once you get this information in, I can then select done. And once I do that, it's now been recorded and it'll be on my list right here. So I can come up here and then select the adjuster. It's set by company right here, but I'm going to do the contact's last name. I can then come up here and select my name, double click on it, and then you can just verify the appropriate fields have been filled out. So you can always make a change or an edit to this, real simple. As I come in here, I can then come up and then search for it. As you can see, I'm searching by the contact last name, and then I just find it, which is right here, select it, and remember, like I did before, I would just come up and double click on it, and it'll bring it right into the screen for you, and then you can make your change. Don't forget about the other tab, please, because that will have your flood control number. We call it the NFIP number here in the program, and then your state license number. Okay. You also have the ability to put the federal TID number in whatever adjustment firm that you're working for. Please don't put your social security number on this because we don't want to broadcast that, please. So, and then there are some other fields that I'd like to take advantage of is the commission rate. So, for example, if you wanted to use Simsol for billing, you could put the commission rate that you're going to make. Also, if they want to take 10% retentage, then you can put that in as well as 100% for expenses. If you're doing wind claims, you can be billed at an hourly rate. So I'm going to put $65 in, followed by a photo rate, let's say $2, and mileage of 55 cents per mile. So I can actually put that into my billing assigned for my name. Once that's done, I can now click on Done. Now I can also look at these other ones, and then I can select any other entry in there by just double clicking it, like I said before. Remember, you want to spend some time on this and put in the carrier names that you're going to be doing business with, along with the IA firms that you're going to be doing business with. I can combine the contacts. So when I came up to myself, Danny Sutliff at Simsol Adjusting, double click on this. As you can see, I picked the adjuster and the adjusting company as the categories. That way I can share these within the Simsol system. So that's pretty much for the contacts on there. Now I would like to leave you with a little saying that I've always used. And the saying is, you can always add a contact on the fly. You can always add a contact on the fly. What do I mean by that? That means I'm in the contact manager outside the claim, but I also can add a contact within the claim. So I'm going to click on Done to get out of that. And like I said before, we can then go into the claim and go in and access the contact manager while you're in the claim. Okay? But it's imperative that you create the contact first, or else it will not work. Okay? So the next thing that we're going to be talking about, the next topic, is going to be setting up your template. We call that preferences. So basically where it's located is going to be maintain. And I'm going to move my mouse right up to preferences. As I select that, it brings me up my preferences screen. So let me just go over this real quick, because this is system-wide. Okay, that means that will automatically, whatever this is in, whatever we put into the preferences section, it will copy for all claims. That's what I mean by system-wide. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to click System Preferences. So once I do that, that's the first screen that comes in. As you can see, I have a logo in here. I can delete the logo, or I can select another logo. And all this is a browse button, and then you would go and find it. Okay, so I have it on the desktop. I can then scroll down, and it's going to show only bitmaps. Okay, only bitmap files. Okay, so we just need to pick on the Simsol icon. As you can see, everything's a bitmap. Another thing that I recommend is enable location factor markup. What that does is they'll give you a markup field box when you're selecting the location factor for setting up your database. So it'll say, well, listen, this is what, it might be 100, 100, 100, which is labor, material, and equipment. And it'll add another column called markup. So you could say, I want a 20% markup, especially for this storm. If you're out work in Florence, then you can come up and say, I want 120, 120, 120 as far as my markup factors go. So I always check that. Your photos can be taken by adjuster. That should be default. And you want to make sure that we have a category and subcategory for contents items. Show the photo panel on the main screen. That's pretty important, I think is a good idea. And do not use the automatically set close date. Mainly staffers will use that, but independent IAs will not, okay? And update all the drawers with the default pricing and the latest pricing after the update. You can select always ask, but I always click on yes because I want the latest and greatest. So you do have that ability to select that. The next thing is on the print options, just make sure that your estimate disclaimer text is selected, okay, and you can then change that, but this, you can only have this amount of characters, so you don't want to write a novel here. You just want to come up and put in no more than, I would say, 35 to 40 characters, okay? On the billing, real easy. I put the service fee dues in 30 days, expenses fees 30, and the retainage is normally 60 days. So you can bill from the adjustment company to the carrier/client, and then you can also place your logo right or left. And if you're doing flood, you're going to do a fee schedule. If you happen to be doing a time and expense, most likely over 51%, then hit time and expense. And then you can come up here and then say thank you for the assignment. Okay. So that's on the billing section. A lot of people omit this, but it's a very nice feature. Date format, you shouldn't have to worry about. On the diagram, you just want to, if you want to turn on the enabled area smart sketch and printing, this is, you could enable that. If you don't want it, you can come over here and then disable that. On the email, please do not use our email program for communications. You want to use your own email program. You already know how to use it, so we have it by default set to disable. The next category is the general conditions, contractors, GCO&P. We can do a variable and variable overhead and profit, and that'll be 10 and 10. It's imperative that it's not cumulative. If it's cumulative, it's going to give you 21%, and you'll get your file kicked back. So you want to use non-cumulative and percentage of RCV and ACV. This is set by default. But I will tell you one thing, though, we do need to select exclude O&P on non-recoverable depreciation from our CV totals. And what I mean by that is that it will, on the contractor's overhead and profit, will only take whatever is allowed for full replacement cost, and all the ACV items will add the 10 and 10 on all your ACV items as well, okay? So it's important that you do have that selected. The headers is already pre-filled out, so you don't have to worry about that. Here's the important one then. It's called loss info, and this is based on the contact manager. So with this, I can actually say that the carrier and client might be Torrent, or it could be EDS, or it could be HP, or it could be NFS. So you can pick the carrier/client if you wish to do so. A lot of people leave this blank because they will pick it when they bring the claim in. And so a lot of people leave that blank. The contractors normally blank, but take a look here. Here on the adjustment company, I can select any of my adjustment companies. So for example, the one I just selected was Simsol Adjusting. I could double click on that. I'm going to go back to loss information, and that's how I can reselect multiple contacts, whatever is needed. On the adjuster, I do the same thing and select it, okay? Oh, I don't have it selected now. There we go. And then the estimator, if you're a contractor, then you can select that. On the left-hand side, represents in a storm condition, okay, or catastrophic event condition. As you know, the loss date for floods are always the same date, so you can actually put that in and it'll automatically fill that out for you. This is really not important like it used to be because we have data coming in from ClaimsWire or from other third-party sources. So all that would be filled out automatically. On the loss type, you can select, if you're doing strictly flood, you can select flood if you need to do so. Okay. Now, don't worry about if you had it in the preferences and you came in and created and put the flood in, and if it's really a wind claim, you can always go to that individual field, hit the down arrow, and select it, and it will override it. So don't worry about that. Okay, you can put the city, state, and CAT number. The CAT number is special because I would put this in. So, for example, on a very large event like Florence, they might say that our CAT number might be 823 or 822 or any of those. You can put that in, so it will automatically put that in so that when you go to your prelim report, the CAT number already shows up. So that's a nice feature. The next section is going to be the notes section, and the notes section is going to be given to you by the IA firm. So you could just do a copy and paste on here and then populate the building estimate cover page notes along with the total page notes. So check with your IA firms and they will tell you what kind of disclaimer notes that they want you to have into the file. And every time you do a new claim, it puts this disclaimer notes in there. The reporter you shouldn't have to touch. The only thing I should tell you is never change the top margin from 1.75. If you do that, then you're not going to have a header. If you go below 1.75, you're never going to have a header. A lot of people like to put in the reports would probably like to put in, for example, half an inch. So I can do that. On the left border and the right border, half an inch. So that's a nice setup there. The next thing we're going to be talking about is going to be the sales and other taxes. On the sales and other taxes, you want to make sure that your material and equipment totals are selected. No need to put the sales tax rate here because we have a service. When you click the button, it says sales tax. It will automatically look and give you the correct sales tax based upon the zip code of the loss. So that's a real nice feature. Remember, do not forget, exclude sales tax on non-recoverable depreciation from RCV totals. On the warning notices, I just leave this like it is. It protects you from on the audits. It'll sit because you can disable that if you wish to do so. I leave it all. For example, it just makes it nice have Simsol have another pair of eyes on your claim. Minimum wage. All right. On the minimum wage, you can then select whatever the minimum wage is. If you're in Alaska, you're going to use $9.80. If you're doing a flood claim, it's probably $7.25. So then I can change that if needed. Okay, if you're doing flood, it's always $7.25 at this juncture. ClaimsWire, that's our sister product, and if you need help in setting that up, please give us a call. On the signature/mentor, as you can see, I have my signature in there along with my mentor. Okay, if you need help putting these in, please call us at technical support. We'll be glad to help you with that. Other than that, the virtual scope sheet has been selected for the hints. Make sure that that's on so it can help you. And depreciation, you shouldn't have to worry about. And then you can also sign up for Clipboard if need be. Okay, that's it for our setting up the template. So every time you create a new claim, it copies that information and it'll really help you. So it's now time to go into the claim. Okay, so as I have a claim in here, I'm going to double click on this. That launches me into the loss information. Now, what I did want to tell you is that how to access the contact manager. Remember what I told you, that you can always create a contact on the fly. Two ways I can do that. One, I can come over here and select, for example, the agency. I can select it. I can then come up 21 claims agency. I already have it filled out, but I can save it to my contact manager. This saves it to the system. So if I ever do another claim with 21 claims agency, I can then select it and it'll put the mailing address and the phone number for that. So as I select it, I add it to the contact manager and that's how I can get it in. So once again, you can pick any one of these contacts. I can put a new carrier in, adjuster, adjustment company. If it's already in there, don't worry about it. You can just overwrite this and then save it to the contact manager. Don't forget to hit the done to get out of this window after the edit changes have been completed. Now, to pay attention over here on the right-hand side, I've got two things. I can edit the carrier information. So the same thing is going to the speed contacts here, or I could actually access my contact manager. So if I can select it, guess what this looks like? Exactly like the contact manager that I have. All I need to do is double click on it, and then it will populate that field. And it's good for carrier, adjuster, adjustment company, all the way down to the other, as you see. Okay? The more information that you can supply into the Simsol file, the better that your estimate is going to look. Okay? Remember I said about something about that sales tax lookup? So as you do this, it's a service that we provide, and then it'll know by the zip code of loss what the proper sales tax rate is. I can click on yes, and now it's been selected. Okay. All right, so that's it for setting up your contacts on the recap while you're in the claim. I'm now going to go into some of the more advanced features within the Simsol system. So I'm going to go into the scope of damage. And I already have a pre-existing estimate already there. So we're going to be talking about the function called macros, okay? And what that does is it really saves a lot of time because you can define the scope once the scope is defined, and then you can use it system-wide. So I'm going to come up here and go to a kitchen. Here we go. And what this is that when making up a macro, I must define scope. So a little trick is that if you already have areas already defined that you want to use for your macros, go into those claims, go into the scope of damage, bring up the area name, and then you can just copy the scope for your macro. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to come up here and click on list. And as you can see, I have a macro here for a kitchen. Okay. And I want to make sure that, let's say if I was going to come down here to the replace drywall and wood framing, if I double click on that, it's 4 foot high. So I know that this scope right here is going to be 4 foot high for my drywall. And that's an important point because remember, macros have no bearing on price, and macros will retain the area percentage plus the height. So that's really important. So if you're doing floods from 1 inch all the way up to probably just under 4 foot, then you could probably use this macro at 4 foot, and it saves you a lot of time to make sure that all the components or all the line items are set to the appropriate height levels. So basically what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to make it full screen so you can see it. Here's my scope, and that's what I want to do. So the first thing when you create a macro is define the scope. In this case, I already have the scope defined. So you're going to pick all these line items, or like I said before, a little hint, go into a pre-existing estimate, just like I did here, and then I can come up and select it, go to list, and verify the scope. Now, there's two types of macros that we can create. We can create an area macro, meaning a kitchen, with all the line items in there pertaining to that. Or I can make an assembly macro, which just little macros, like a door assembly. I can come up and say, I want R&R door, along with the remove and reinstall the lock set, paint the door, and make sure that we have all the components just addressing a door. Or I can make one for drywall. So I can have unlimited macros within the Simsol system. So for example, let's make our first macro. So I'm going to do an area macro. So I'm going to select the first one, which is flood loss cleanup. And then I'm going to use my shift key, and I'm going to go to the last one and hit the shift key, and everything is going to mark in blue. What you need to be aware of that is if anything in blue is going to be part of the macro. And that's marking it for the macro. Okay. Once you have that all selected in blue, I'm going to come up and then select macros from the main menu up here. Not this macro button here. That's a play macro. I have to create the macro in order to play. I have to record, excuse me, I need to record the macro instead until I play it. Okay. So I'm going to click on macros and I'm going to select record macro. As I do this, the window comes up and I'm going to say R and R kitchen flood 4 foot high. So I can select that. Now, anything, like I said before, anything in dark blue, that's going to give you that, it's going to give you that scope, anything in blue. So as I click on done, the macro has now been inserted. And that's how easy it is. I'm now going to do a drywall macro and including the paint. So for example, watch this, it's really cool. I'm going to come up and do the remove drywall, and I'm using the control key to individually mark the items that I want. In this case, I'm going to select the paint one first coat, second coat, remove base molding, replace base molding, and paint base molding. So you can see I have numerous operations for this R&R drywall 4 foot, and that's what I'm going to name it. I'm going to come up here and go to the main menu where it says macros, and I'm going to use the option called record macro. As I do that, I'm now going to give it a name, and I might call it assembly drywall with paint. So as I do that, I then come up and select done. That's now been saved because it was in dark blue and it's ready to be used. So I'm going to get out of this for just a second and I'm going to create a new area. Now when I do this, I'm going to select, let's say 20 by 20 room. So I'm just going to name it. I'm going to then put the dimensions in of the room. Let's say this is on a new claim. Got the height in there at 8 foot. There it is. And I'm now going to click on scope to launch the VSS. I now have the VSS, and I'm going full screen so you can see it a little better. And I'm now going to invoke the macro. The button that I told you not to push, it's time to push it because this is only a play macro. So as I select it, I can come up and then select R&R kitchen flood 4 foot high and select done. Now, it'll stop with this macro display window. Now, what I tell everybody to do is hit process all macro items using the original height areas. So if I had 4 foot, it's going to retain that 4 foot. Okay, and then all I have to do is hit accept. Once I make sure that the process has been accepted, it's going to rip through the estimate, but then stop on anywhere that it needs a price. In this case, I have the NFIP dryad allowance with HVAC. I can then put 32 cents in. So as I do that, I can then select done and the macro will continue. All right, and here I have a good wood base linear foot. I can say it's 12 foot. And then I have a backslash, let's say that's going to be 13 feet. So it's continuing the macro that I had. It's asking me for a refrigerator number. I'll say model, let's say KitchenAid. And select make model serial number. So I can place that in there. It is going to stop wherever it needs information. So as I do that, it's going to ask me for another thing. And I can say Sears. I'm just putting something in here just to put something in and you'll see it. You can always, after the macro is run, go in and edit it. I'm just going to put Sears in here again as well. These are all my appliances, by the way. So as you can see, these items have now been picked, but the proof is in the pudding. If I click the list button, there is the macro that I have created. Check this out. This is so cool. I've got the HVAC in, but check this out. I've got the paint walls, but it retains. So the first coat, second coat, third coat. Let's take a look at our replace drywall, and it's replacing it 4 foot, exactly what I wanted. Okay, so you can then go in here and select it. Now, one thing that's really nice is once you get your scope defined, is if I've got one for 4 foot, I can then just modify that to 8 and then resave it or re-record it using the macro record button. Okay. If there's something that you don't need in this macro, then please get rid of it. So for example, if I need to get rid of the outlets, it's easier to delete than it is to add. I don't have to search for it. It's right there. And then all I have to do is select delete. Here I've got the remove stainless steel dishwasher, the gas range, and the refrigerators. This is where you're going to see your notes. Okay, there's the series that I put in. This might be my first note that I put in. So it stops wherever it needs data information. Okay, so as you can see, I have that one in there. To run the other macro, which is called an assembly, I can then create a new area. Let's say bedroom. Give it some dimensions. I'm just going to say it's a 10 by 10. Okay. So once I do that, click on scope, and this time I'm going to use an assembly macro. Now, what's nice about an assembly macro is that you can say, okay, I have one for floors, I have one for walls, I have one for ceiling, I have one for other things, specialty items. So I could build my whole area by just using the assemblies. So as I do that, I come up and select the macro and say, oh, there's the assembly, R&R drywall with paint. So as I do that, I click on done, hit process. Remember, hit the process, click on accept. So as I do that, then I have that in there. So you can see how I do that. So as I click on list, there is my different macro for that assembly. And that's it for macros. Okay, it's real easy to do. I'm going to get rid of these. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about copy and the importance of copy. And that means I can take a room, like for example here, and if I want to take, for example, a hall bedroom, I can select that, or that's the master bedroom, excuse me. If I want to take a hall bedroom and duplicate that, master bedroom and duplicate that, I can select copy. As I do that, clicks on yes, and all I need to do is it brings up the room and I can rename it second master bedroom, and then change the dimensions if needed. It will automatically change my quantities. So as I hit scope, it will now take whatever scope that I had originally and then apply the new settings to that. And that's how easy it is for just copy. So a lot of people have not used that, but it's a good function that you could use that piece. Clone is exactly the same as copy, but 2 or more. So if I need to make 2 of these, I can select it. So as you can see, I have a copy of this one here on the second bedroom, and then all I would have to do is click edit and then make my change. So I'm going to get rid of these. Remember, I can come up and then select the second master, hit delete. I can only do it one at a time. So as I do that, that will give me my copy and clone option. The next thing that I want to talk about is a very important function we call group. And it's really nice using the group because this is good if you're doing RCBAPs or you're doing apartment complexes. Let's say that this right here is going to be my interior, but I have a unit, like for example, unit 101. I can create a group called unit 101, and you're going to see a yellow folder called unit 101. What I can do here is I can grab each individual one of these and I can grab it into unit 101. You just copy it. What it is you highlight the area, left click, and then drag. But what I'm going to do is I got this interior here. I'm going to select it. I'm going to drag a group within a group. So I'm going to take this interior and I'm going to place it right on unit 101. So as I do that and I select it, so it's if I was doing an apartment complex, I can then come up and there's my areas. Now what's nice about this is let's say that I have let me see if I have 4 units that I have to add so that I have 5 units in this apartment complex. I can come up here and select unit 101, and now this is where the clone option works really well. I can come up here and select this unit, so it's going to copy this scope, and then I'm going to select clone, and then when I hit clone, I'm going to hit 4, and then select OK. So now it's going to create me 4 different unit 101s. And the only thing I need to do would be to change the description of the group. So as you can see, it's copying all that scope and areas. That's going to save you a lot of time. So as I do that, I just click on the edit button, and now it's not unit 101, it's unit 2. And I just do that for the remaining. So as you can see, I'm doing that just by hitting the edit. And then if I need to make corrections to the area, I certainly may do so. So I have now unit 105. So I can even expand that even more. I've got all the units. I can make another group up called floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, and do the same action. So that's a really great feature. So what I'm going to do now is show you global. And what global does is it can take a single line item, and I can then apply. I can add a line item. I can delete line item in the estimate. I can then edit a line item in the estimate for one area, selected areas, or all areas. So basically, you already know how to do this because you use the VSS. It's exactly the same, but it's called Virtual Scope Sheet Global Mode. So you can see that I have the name of the file plus global mode. Now, if I need to make a change for drywall in case the price, and you've already written the estimate, as you can see, I have quite numerous different areas in my system. I can come right up into the wall drywall, select scope number 2, which is the replacement. And now I can say on the note, price agreed with contractor. Put that note in, and I'm going to now save for the price, and I'm going to put in $1.75 for the replacement of this drywall. As I do that, I can also put in to depreciation, and then I can either, if I leave this alone, it'll update itself. If it's 4 foot, it will update to 4 foot on the quantities. So as you can see, on the left-hand side, you see it's in blue here. I'm just going to clear it for just a second and see where it says kitchen in bold with the stars. So anywhere with that area name with the stars in bold means that this line item is in that area. So what I could use is select all, make sure I've got it all, and I don't have to worry. Now see, the exterior doesn't have the bold and the asterisks on either side. But what I want to do is I don't want to put a new one in. I want to update pre-existing. So I can even leave that exterior selected and just click update. So what update does is it goes and finds that pre-existing line item for all the areas and updates only those. So as I do that, I click OK. It automatically rips through and applies that price change automatically for you. This is an awesome feature. Okay. So now that I have that there, I can then select done. If I need to add a brand new item, okay, so let's say that I need to put in, for example, some outlets or something like that, or some cover plates. Let's say if I come over here and go into the electrical items, and then from the electrical items, I do have some cover switch plates, but let's say a switch. Let's say I want to put a switch in, so I'll do a remove and replace on the switch, and then it's going to say, now this is going to be brand new because it's not in there because I have no bold, I have no asterisks. So what I could do is, let's say that I only want to put the switches in for kitchen, laundry, and family for the first area only. So I can do that by selecting clear, marking the kitchen with I'm holding down my control key, and I'm adding the areas that I want that to be in there. I can also put in user notes, damage by flood. And then from there, I can then select update, or excuse me, correction, add. So as I do the add button, select it, click OK, and it says, do you want 2 switches per room? I'm only going to say 1. Click OK, and it's now been added for those areas only. So anywhere where the blue is, then I can do that. I'm going to select the done to get out of that. I can also delete an item. So for example, I made a mistake, and on the electrical switches, I can select scope number 2, make sure that it's all in blue, hit delete, and it's going to then update itself and take all those switches that I just added and remove them. I'm going to click done to select the option and completion of that line item, and we're good to go. So I did the copy, I did the addition, I did the deletion, and then I did the update, okay? Remember that you can do it for one area, all areas, or selected areas. I'm going to come up into another line item here. So for example, if I want to select carpeting per square yard, and or per square foot, let's say I don't have any carpeting in this, and I want to add it, I can then come up and then select scope number 2 and hit the clear button. And let's say I just want it in the master bedroom only. And then I can select it and click add. So it's been added. But here's the problem. Let's say that I had it on multiple areas and the depreciation was set incorrectly. So I need to make this non-recoverable. This is one of the most nicest features in the system because I can simply come up and click on RC depreciation, mark it as non-recoverable, click OK, and so it changes wherever it's dark blue, remember, plus the asterisks on either sides with the bold, and it will now mark that item as unrecoverable depreciation. So that is global in a nutshell. And you can definitely actually speed your work up by using these tools.
Great, Danny. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We have about a few minutes left, and so I just want to open it up right now if you guys do have any questions. Okay, looks like we have a couple of questions coming in. I have here, how do you exclude O&P to certain trades only?
What you would do is you would have to go into the total page. We'll just come up and click done to get out of the global mode. And I'm going to go to the total page. Okay, I'm going to ignore the advisory. And I'm going to click on OH&P or ONP, select it, and then you put the amounts and you want percentages you want. Now there's two different columns, left and right. All trades and sub-trades, this is included. If you need to exclude a certain piece of information or a certain trade, you may do so by, I'm going to move this over for just a second and set up for flood right now. Simsol does ask you, do you want to exclude the flood trades, and it will do that for you automatically. But I'm going to move this over, and if I need to do carpeting, okay, so for example, if I need to take my carpeting, that's going to be a finish. It's important that you double click on the trade, or else you're just going to grab over the total finish, and that's not what you want. The contract will be very upset. But if I want to come up here and then select, and I scroll down to carpet and pad, select that individual trade, and then select it. Now it's done, and that's how you do it.
All right. Our next question is, can you discuss admin notes, comments, etc. In the global mode?
On the global mode, if I go back to it, let me just go to the scope of damage, and I go into the global mode. It's part of the edit function. And so as I come up and select this and I go into the VSS, which is VSS global mode is the proper terminology. So if I need to add, for example, a note to this, I could go to Mildeside Floors, for example, select the scope number, it brings up the edit box, and then I can come up here and say this is part of the HVAC dry out. So part of the dry out. Process. You can put any note that you want. Now, if you want that note only attributed to one area, then you select the area that you want. If you want it on every area, then wherever you have picked this line item, all you have to do is click update, and it's going to apply that note. Because it knows it's going to ask you, when I click on update here, it's going to say, well, I only want to do user notes and a parent to current. So see how these are left unchecked? That means it knows when you go to the edit screen which item, what field boxes that you have changed. So I can now click on OK, and now it's applied that note to everywhere that has been in the system.
Okay. Our next question is how to reset program in building estimate to read a one-line item versus remove or replace need R&R item.
Oh, good question. It's in our preferences. I'm going to go to maintain preferences. And then when I come up, it's one of these in the section. So let me find it real quick for you. It will ask us for an R&R on it. Here it is right here. That section there. Sorry about that. Yeah, it used to be set to the drawer properties, and in this release we just sent it back up to the preferences because everybody wanted it there instead of associated to the drawer. But yes, there's enabled scope number 3. That's going to give you a half tick mark when you go into the VSS.
Okay, our next question is any way to remove floor and or wall footage behind or below cabinetry other than doing your own math?
No, it's something that we'd like to put in, and then where it remembers what the linear footage is because we know what it is, but no, you would have to do the math manually.
And then here's an easy one. How do you import a CFZ file into Simsol?
Oh, an SFZ file, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, real easy. Basically, you have to be out of the claim, okay? And you have to be registered. If you're on the demo, if you have a demo copy, it will not work. So what I'm going to do here is go to home, HOME, see? And then from home, there's an option called unarchive. Now remember, you said to unarchive it. That means it's already in an SFZ file compressed. Okay, we're not creating the SFZ, we're taking the SFZ and then placing it into the Simsol. I'm going to click Unarchive and then click the Browse button wherever that is. And let me see if I don't think I have anything in here. Hold on just a second. Maybe see if I do. It will automatically show me. Yes, we have some right here. So as I come up here and select this one here called Diagram Test, remember that these are user-defined names. I can double click on this. Here's the actual file name. Once I do that, I hit Select All. If it's in blue, then select Unarchive. Once it's selected, I then come up, as soon as it's in there, I have to go to the inbox. From the inbox, I will then pick it, whatever it is, okay, whatever that file name is, which is Diagram Test. I will then come up and use my Move to the test that I want to use. So I can use Test of Forms, and that's where it's located. That's how you unarchive.
All right, and I believe this is going to be our last question. It's about 5 o'clock right now. Can a statement of loss calculate coinsurance?
Actually, the system does the coinsurance for you. Let me get into a claim here real quick. So this will be the torrent test, which is here. This is going to be my claim I'm going to go into. All right. When I come up here to the building estimate information window, which is here, and I select building info, this is the calculation that tells you if they qualify for full replacement cost or not. Those figures will then be displayed in the statement of loss generator. Okay, but I have to have an insured to value done first, and that's located down to where it says value, insured to value, or value square foot evaluation program, which is right here. This needs to be filled out prior of doing this action. Once you have done the evaluation, you then select it, which I just did right there. Then it populates these fields based upon what the amount of coverage that you have to the insured to value. It will say if it qualifies or not, unless the force qualify is selected. So it says right now, risk does not qualify, okay? And the only time in a flood claim is that it does qualify is that if you have met the conditions, and one of the conditions are $250,000 of coverage limit, plus it's the primary risk, and that's important in single family. If you have determined that's what it is, you can click on Force Qualify, and it will automatically tell the computer to apply full replacement cost. But the statement of loss, if you did need to do a statement of loss, it will reflect that. So if I come up into the loss information function and then come on over to the SOL button, that means Simsol statement of loss, select it, and see how fast this will populate. It will do the recoverable and the non-recoverable by just selecting coverage A and then select copy all. So you can see that the recoverable and non-recoverable is showing up in your statement of loss.
All right, great. Well, thank you everyone so much for attending. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you also appreciate these webinars as well too. And again, if you have any questions for us, there below you can see our contact information. Thank you so much everyone, and have a great evening.